Welcome to the Mavens of Data podcast. We are so excited to have Tiffany, CEO of Fulcra Dynamics, here with us today. So today we're going to be talking about how you can augment your work and personal life with artificial intelligence. To dive right in, Michael, so happy to have you here. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to?
Yeah, all right. Happy to do so. What brought me here, like to this chair, having this conversation with you, begins with being a hacker, but it takes some unexpected turns. I was a teenage hacker. I love computers. I love just curiosity-driven tinkering, which I think is the starting place of every hacker. And I started a company, a cybersecurity company in New York, well over a decade ago, called Human, as part of a collaboration with a friend of mine, Dan Kaminsky. Dan and I got really interested in software delivery through the web. Dan had discovered this architectural flaw in the internet having to do with DNS, and is just an amazing hacker. He and I later got kind of obsessed with how we still think of the web as being this document-oriented exchange medium where you're viewing documents that hyperlink to others, and that's what the web was originally designed to be. It is no longer that. We're really, the way we joked about this is that JavaScript is like the universal solvent of networking. Everyone's browser is now a fully featured application runtime environment, and the web, for the most part, is software delivery, which by convention is written in JavaScript. And instead of clicking an install button and installing a .exe, instead you have this magical portal to the world that downloads code and just runs it, just trusts that the code that it gets is executable and everything is going to be fine, which is a hell of a trust assumption to make. So when Dan and I got obsessed with this, we started uncovering all of the ways in which these are terrible trust assumptions. And we built this big cybersecurity company doing fraud detection for the internet, human security. It's to this day protecting a huge amount of the internet and differentiating between humans and robots. So I dealt a lot with bots. That we grew that company very well. And during the pandemic times, during the lockdown times, we did this major financial transaction. It was very exciting that we did a big transaction with Goldman Sachs. But shortly thereafter, my co-founder Dan passed away. He died on the other coast. I live on the East Coast. He was in the Bay Area, and he, as I think we were all experiencing the pandemic, much less social contact. He died away. He died kind of unexpectedly and alone.
Sorry to hear that.
And this devastated me. It's radically changed my life. I'm still devastated. Because here's a person who is so meaningfully connected with me that I dream of him. Yeah, I still dream of him. He dreamed of me. But I didn't know how he was doing. Speaking of the web and browsers, social networking has brought us together in important ways, but social networking has become social media. It's a way of sharing our lives, but it's all intermediated through what we type, right? Like what we say. And that tells you nothing about how someone is. How are they doing? How is my friend sleeping? Right? I none of that. But that is knowable. So in the next phase of my life, when starting Fulcra, the obsessive pursuit here is that the devices in our lives can be a source of not just what we've said or what we've written, but how we are living.
Actually. Mm-hmm.
And so we gather that data, we can surface it to our own conscious minds to better understand how it is that we are living. And then you can also share it with another person. So much of our lives are alone. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard to know how someone is doing. I don't think we should be complacent about that. I think there are new forms of opening up how it's going
Yep.
with other people. And that's the big pursuit of Fulcra. And now putting that in a very nerdy way, because I am a super nerd, we're solving an observability problem.
Yep.
As data engineers, anyone who's been working in DevOps over the past several years, it has probably gotten obsessed with observability. Like how do you know how a system is going?
Yep.
You have to solve observability before you can have any hope of manageability. So what are the last meter observability problems in our own lives? Can we use IoT, wearables, all this breakthrough new tech to solve for that? And then if we do, how can we put that data to use? That's really what we're obsessed with here at Fulcra.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah, no, and the things that I think about as you're talking, it's like for the person who is a couple days sober and now they haven't left their house in 2 days, right? Like we know their IP and we know, that they haven't left the house in 2 days. They're not socializing. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, but yes, no, like the behavioral data is always so much more valuable than what it is we're sharing and that information that we willingly give you about us. But with these devices that we have the ability to track all that. Yeah. One other thing you touched on was you used the term hacker a couple times in the beginning to describe yourself and your was it your co-founder but like so what is a hacker to you, and how have you brought your hackerness to life?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So for me, being a hacker is about radical self-empowerment. When looking at my own life and when comparing notes with other hackers, I think that our journey to become hackers always begins with curious tinkering. We're just wondering how things work, and actually that leads some people to a special place, and that special place is learning the difference between how a system is supposed to behave and how it actually behaves. In many cases, in the domain of software engineering, we learn what compilers are supposed to do. We learn what function calls are supposed to do. And in many cases, what we do as hackers is we exploit the difference between what a system is supposed to do and what it actually does under the hood. To build that mental model, I think always requires just open-ended, curiosity-driven tinkering. There's no way to sort of artificially become curious, right? You have to start as a curious person, and get obsessive about building this mental model of what happens under the hood. And when you do that, I did say something about radical self-empowerment. What is power? Like power is the ability to make things happen in the world, and sometimes that takes the form of delegated power, right? So you can have an important job. You can have power that's like that. Then there's this power that comes truly from within, because you have that superior mental model. Like, I know exactly how the linker in this compiler works, and I can make it do things that the documentation says it can't, right? So the much, I think, of what distinguishes a hacker from any other sort of engineer is then this outcome, which is making things happen that from the outside look either impossible or look like that would take a team in a lifetime, not a single person in a basement.
Yep.
Right? So that power always comes from the smart application of leverage in these places that tend to be the undocumented places.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's so empowering, right? When you realize that you have that ability to make these things happen. And we're lucky to be in this space where like we learn the skills and have the ability to go and of course research some more, but you can get to that place where you can make these things happen on your own, and it's empowering.
That's right. The entire internet is like contingent. There are so many solutions to human problems that really are the result of the application of one human being who fixed a problem. And yeah, so but part of what I love about the internet and hacker culture on the internet is people just seeing the problem and self-electing to be the one who fixes it. That's pretty great.
Awesome. Yeah. And so obviously with all the new advances in AI, we're being empowered to do things that we haven't done before.
Yeah.
Do you see like specific applications in business or personal life that are, your favorite or, truly having an impact?
Yeah. Here are the things that are just capturing most of my attention right now. I love everything happening in the composability of foundation models. So large language models being used as foundation models, either the proprietary ones or the self-hostable open source ones, are seem to be capable of great things. Seem to be capable of more than just sentence completion. And so by composability, what I mean is, what can we do to build an LLM as a source of intelligence for getting something done, as you're building an agent or a specialized application. And most of the innovation in that regard is happening in the enterprise. There's a lot of great RAG systems being built that augment the reasoning abilities of LLMs with proprietary knowledge. But there's so much that can be done in the personal domain. But it's held back, I think, because enterprises tend to have something like a data lake.
Which is everything. Yep.
Yeah. Place you can like plug the LLM into. And people do not have the personal data lake is not a thing. So the personal applications of like RAG tend to be very boring. Like chat with your PDF documents is like an interesting demo, but it's not a life-changing capability, right?
Yep.
So at Fulcra, we've been exploring that space, and we've been seeing people discover Fulcra and explore that space on their own, where you tie in consumer tech, like I'm wearing this Apple Watch, I'm wearing an Oura Ring, that's gathering a bunch of data. What new uses can we put that data to? And the sometimes that's just data-driven introspection, because we've basically built the bridge between these wearables and a computational notebook. So if you want to do data science on yourself, that becomes a lot easier than it used to be. But the broader thing, look around your life, look around your home. We've been building instrumentation into our lives without intelligence. The smart switches, for instance, are nice for giving you software control over your lights. So it's nice first order for like automation, but what happens when every single one of these things becomes a like surface for AI to be more helpful, for an AI agent to understand situational awareness about you? Imagine that these devices aren't just providing data, but that they're actually new entry places for AI augmentation of your life to get a little bit of help.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of us feel like we're drowning in data, but we don't have enough help. Right. So what happens when this ambient computability becomes sources of intelligence and helpful assistance? It's really exciting. So those pursuits are probably like taking most of my like time and attention as we close out 2024.
Okay, and so you touched on the lights a little bit, but how are you seeing people use AI in their personal lives?
Let me talk about
Mm-hmm.
like what's going well and what's not, like what the sources of frustration are. Oh, actually, let me go in reverse. So,
Yeah.
the AI can be extremely useful. It can be helpful if you break a procedure in your life down into its component parts in the way that you would explain the procedure to a child, instead of in the way that you would break it down to write a program to.
Yep.
I think that as software engineers, I think we all train ourselves to do functional decomposition, right? We want to achieve some goal, and we're like, okay, how do I break this down into a composable set of functions? So then we just go. And like if we're good at our jobs, we got really good at functional decomposition of general problems. And I actually think if you're good at that, you're bad at instructing an LLM to help you, because the ways that we have trained ourselves to do functional decomposition are methods for dealing with the fact that historically computers have been very difficult to instruct. A programming language is simply a special language to be really, really precise about what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And the magic of like ChatGPT or Claude is actually being able to navigate ambiguity, right? So you have to like throw away all of your training about how to get extra precise and instead get lazier, try ambiguous instructions, or maybe the right way to do that is try the rich expressiveness of your native language in the way that you would instruct like an apprentice in getting something done. So the people that I'm seeing succeed the most at getting like the best results out of, especially consumer grade interfaces like ChatGPT and Claude, are actually being, first of all, just more expressive. They're literally chatting with the chat interface more and just trying to pull it more into their open-ended. They're thinking out loud with those bots. And then you can engage the models to help you make your own processes more explicit, and then almost collaboratively determine what processes you can then offload
Mm-hmm.
to the LLM. So that works very well for personal empowerment, and the people who are doing that are like, wow, I've truly become more efficient. Whereas like I've now even myself like built some personal RAG systems for various purposes, and mostly been disappointed. A lot of investment there at like training an LLM on my own emails to write emails as me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, I don't know. This was sort of a wasted effort.
No, I really agree with you though. So I built an LLM powered app for a consultancy, and then I was working for an organization that was also building one internally. And one of the things that I was really big on was that when it comes to that prompt template, I need support from the rest of the business. Like, this is not a
Right.
dev thing. Get me your head of content, get me your, domain expert who like really, has deep knowledge on how they want. And this is separate from the technical knowledge itself. And I find that that's something that I've struggled in working with businesses on, because, they come up with an idea and they see it as a dev project. And it's like, no, this needs to be a really collaborative project where we talk about, semantic meaning and understand what you're really looking to get at. So I feel you.
Oh, cool. Okay. Now that we've agreed, let me introduce a totally weird idea. This has worked very well for me, might work for you, but I just want to acknowledge up front, it's weird. The next like sort of most exciting augmentation that I've seen work in practice and have personally experimented with and enjoyed is running a local image model, a local image to text model. And my particular favorite is an open source model called Moondream. Fundamentally what Moondream does is simply accurately describes in English what is happening in a photo. Okay. Okay. The where this gets radical is that it means that any cheapo camera that you might want to set up in your home is no longer a camera. It is an intelligence source. So if you want to get a really accurate model of like how much time you've spent at your desk, you can aim a camera at your desk and self-tracking yourself like you never have before, because the output of Moondream will like literally capture all the timestamps of you being in front of your desk. Or how about how many times when you're bored you go and check on the refrigerator, right? Like how much boredom eating do I do is a now completely answerable question by just aiming a camera at the fridge. Yeah.
You don't have to tell me. I have a school bus detector. My camera's right there. It is constantly watching the bus. It sends me text alerts in the morning because we're lucky that the school bus has to go by our house, pick somebody else and come back. So I get a 5-minute heads up. And then just today I posted because they announced the new Jetson Nano Orin. Whatever, yes. But a year ago, I had given a talk at ODSC where I had put YOLO V8 on like a Pi 3, a Pi 4, and a Nano. And like, just looking at the differences in the latency and other metrics and stuff like that. So as you're talking, I'm just like, no, I am the queen of buying cheap cameras and making a 3D printed plastic case to put them in and setting them up like you're talking about. And I'm like, oh, we're just like, we're kindred spirits.
Yes. And I feel like the local model is really empowering in this regard, because sending big video streams like to someone on the internet feels a little sketchy, right? Whereas if I can just discard the video stream, get the local extraction that I want, that's the intelligence that I want, dismiss the rest. This is super useful in like a whole bunch of random ways.
Yes. I mean, you can also end up storing a ton of data you don't need on Mongo, but which is something that I noticed I did recently and had to. I was like, I don't need any of this. Oh man, that's exciting though. Where do you see all of this, 5 to 10 years from now? How are the people who are listening right now, how do you see them using AI to augment their lives?
Okay, here's my weird take. I think that, having worked in software for a long time, it seems to me like we go through periods of bundling and unbundling. And so many of us know that cycle. I think that this wave of AI is kicking off a new long cycle of unbundling like we've never experienced before. And it comes down to the fact that code generation is getting better and better, right? Yep. Why did we bother learning programming languages? I think it's because we want computers to do stuff. Computers have historically been too dumb to navigate ambiguity. So as I was saying before, a programming language is just a very formal, constrained language to speak very precisely about what you want. When that stops being a requirement for getting something out of a computer, when people can just use English and get something sophisticated, it changes how software engineering should work. Like, not just will work, but should work. Here's what I mean. As I interact with data systems, like I was just talking about all the wearables, everything I buy that is some data generating service comes with some dashboard, right? And every dashboard has some product manager who's in charge of the dashboard, who probably has a backlog of features, and on some periodicity, maybe every 2 weeks, is like looking at the backlog and deciding what things are actually going to get built. And I, as a user of the system, cannot do a thing until the PM decides, okay, that's a feature we're actually going to write and we're going to ship, right?
You can have this, yeah.
Yes. Well, if I can, if I, as a untutored user, can explain to my local LLM, like, this is the data I want to extract out of my Aura ring, and I want you to correlate it with this other stuff, and then I want you to show it to me in a graph that looks like this, and that can just happen, then I am getting like use out of those information systems without some product manager having contemplated that use case and built for it in advance. So it's precisely because of that destabilization that I think we're going to enter this amazing new period of unbundling.
Back to the people, right? Yep.
Where first, we software and product designers are going to like resist this, but we're going to start leaning into it and going, maybe like this is not about bolting a chatbot onto the dashboard. This is actually about empowering users to change the way the dashboard works on the fly with a generative interface that can adapt, possibly with a little bit of local code generation that's kind of coming from the user, now empowered by the LLM generating that code. We're all going to be doing this. We're all going to be essentially writing code that satisfies a need in the moment and gets blown away, and we don't even bother to remember.
And not know we're writing code.
So I'm really excited about that, because in effect, it pushes intelligence and flexibility to the edge of our computing systems, right? Like ordinary people are going to have power that they never had before, because that power used to only obtain once they learned a programming language. So it's not just about central AIs having a tremendous amount of power and intelligence. I think this empowers the edges because of the social phenomena that I just described, and that's going to be destabilizing to a bunch of existing power structures. But I think it's broadly going to be good for all of us because it's literally human empowerment. So that's the source of the, I think, excitement you can hear in my voice.
No, and I love the positive outlook, because it's not what everyone always shares.
Yeah,
so
right.
I love that. And I hadn't asked yet, can you tell us specifically what you are up to at Fulcra Dynamics and what you guys are doing with personal data?
Yes, thank you. Wow, all right. So now that you're asking it at this point in the conversation, I'm realizing that I've got a whole empowerment theme going.
It is theme. It's the theme. We'll have to change the title of the show.
So the big idea with Fulcra is to help people gather all of the data that their lives produce and put it in a repo that belongs to them, so they can do whatever the heck they want with it. It turns out that one of the things that people want to do is actually just see the data that their lives produce de-siloed. So that dashboard constraint I just described is rearing its head in all of our lives. I'm one of those weirdos with a smart bed. I have an 8-sleep bed. It's awesome. And it does great monitoring of my sleep. It knows nothing about my eating habits, exercise habits, like a whole bunch of other factors that actually go into whether I'm going to have a good night's sleep. So as I started to improve my health and actually like manage myself towards better sleep outcomes, what I was doing is waking up, looking at the data from 8 Sleep, looking at other data, so my CGM data, monitoring my glucose spikes was available in a different dashboard, and workouts just lived in Apple Health. It's a completely different ecosystem, and it was like an exercise to the reader. It was up to me to sort this out, and
which is the same interoperability problem we see everywhere, right? Like
that's right. So in the earliest days of Fulcra, as we get the repo working and we get it wired up so that it just starts absorbing streams in real time, no batch updates. One of the first surprising insights is that I didn't even know my Apple Watch has a time series. It's constantly producing a time series of how loud the environment is. So it's a dBSPL time series. So just what's the decibel level right now? Well, guess what? Noise in the night. This seems so obvious in retrospect. Noise in the night was affecting my sleep. Sometimes it would shift me out of deep sleep and into REM as I was incorporating the noise into my dreams. Or sometimes I would like half wake up, but I was not fully waking up, so I had no idea that sound in the night was actually affecting me because it was affecting me unconsciously. And all I did was in my Fulcra dashboard, I simply had my noise time series next to the sleep phase data, and like it just pops out clear as a bell. So one of the honestly sources of value that we're still exploring with Fulcra just comes from simply de-siloing all of this data. It just magically becomes more useful just when you can see it all in one place on like your big monitor instead of your tiny phone screen. But the more relevant, I think, to the audience listening right now is that we had this big theory that the working medium of almost all data scientists is a computational notebook. And it's actually really hard to get something like the dBSPL numbers out of this Apple Watch and into a computational notebook. Like go through all the steps to like grab your workout data and then do data science on yourself. Like the bridge work.
The whole project.
It's massive, right? Plus, it's batch oriented. That led me to this aha moment, which is when we work in the enterprise, especially if you're doing like data engineering, you probably like have some familiarity at this point with something like Kafka, right? Like Kafka is a big part of our lives. There is no like Kafka for people, right? All personal computing is still heavily oriented around files. It's really easy to save a file to Dropbox or Google Drive. We can move files around. What about the data in your life that is not natively a file? Your calendars, your location history, by definition, any time series that's coming from wearables, most of the events that come from an IoT device, they are not natively represented in files. You can usually request a batch export to a file, mm-hmm. but that's annoying, right? Like I want to work with my data streams natively. So it turns out that some magic happens if you just build a streaming data store for your personal data, and then you make an API on the other end that makes it really easy to like call out of Google Colab or like just whatever notebook you want to use, and never deal with batch exports again, right? Like if I have an idea about how my sleep might be affected by some other like random variable, the historical weather data or something, I can just act on that right now. We just removed a bunch of friction from having just random theories you want to test, and that's that. When you remove friction, you remove the cost, even the cognitive load of just trying something out, just like tinkering and exploring.
Yes, that's a huge barrier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So sometimes it's quotidian, and then every once in a while there's like some mind blowing insight you find where you're like, what? I didn't know that the timing of blood sugar spikes was affecting like how much REM sleep I would get the like next night. Whoa, it's huge.
Is that something you found?
Oh my God, yes. Oh man. So some of the coolest insights from all of the early users of Fulcra have been, the like the reusable stuff turns out to be, you'll never guess what affects your sleep. Yeah.
Wow. And so where this is personal data, is this something that people would be able to go and play with now, or what does that sort of look like?
Yeah. So right, you heard me talking about individual empowerment and even data sovereignty. So here's how we're navigating respect for individual data sovereignty while also achieving almost like a reusability of insights. So if you create a Fulcra account right now, you will during account creation, there will be some new encryption keys that are made just for you. You start streaming in the data from your watch or your ring or your smart bed or whatever. And it's all just going to a private data store. It's just for you. But when you look on the back end at what we call the Life API, the calls you make to get that time series of how loud it's been, or your body mass, or your heart rate, or whatever, all have predictable, consistent semantics. So the way that the function call you would literally make to get your heart rate time series is the same as what I would call to do the same thing, even though we might have different wearables. So part of what we're doing at Fulcra is dealing with the random nuances of difference between a Whoop band versus a Garmin versus or something. So we deal with all that, and then on the other end, it's just nice, clean time series of these properties of people. Like people might have different kinds of wearables, but we all have a heart rate that's has some very predictable dimensions. So for instance, the first user to discover glucose spikes affecting sleep and then changing his timing of eating sweets, which then increased the amount of sleep he got each night. That was all figured out with a computational notebook that was just very like private, right? It was just very specific to him. But the notebook, once created, could be run on anyone else's data. So you could take that notebook, authenticate to your own Google data store, your own Fulcra data store, get your own measures, and see the results. So I'm excited about trying to power that kind of exploration and then collaboration, because I think we as data scientists have poured a lot into figuring out how to, I don't know, recommend a movie or a bit of music. There's still
whole businesses around that.
there's so much to learn about our own patterns of life that I think have just not been learned because it's been too hard. The bridge between the data and the working medium of data science has just been, it's too much effort to connect those. So just contracting that difference probably is going to lead to more insights that should be shareable across the whole user community. I'm almost just like watching it unfold and going, what? I'm going to try that too.
No, that's so crazy. And I do want to hop into the questions so that we have time for that. But if I could just ask a low level question real quick. Yeah. When you're setting this up, do do you get the history of, like, if you add your device, do you get the history, or is it starting at time of sign up and you have to wait a little bit before you
Oh,
collect
I'm
that
so
data?
glad you asked, because yeah, so we get
And
a
this
lot.
wasn't planted. If this answer's good, this wasn't planted. I just
Oh my
randomly
God.
came
Right,
up
no,
with that.
so like the almost everyone who tries Fulcra gets blown away like right after onboarding, because like right there in the onboarding experience, at like the end, there's like a little report like, here's all of the data types that have just been gathered and how far back they go, and almost everyone's like, what? Like my experience, I was like, sound levels, that's a thing? I had no idea. So sometimes you're surprised by like the data type, you just didn't even know that was being produced. And then secondly, it's sometimes the surprise is how far back the data goes. For instance, I'll just tell a personal story again. Like, I've got step count going back years, like way before I adopted any wearables, because a certain iOS revision that silently started processing the accelerometer data in my iPhone, and making pretty good guesses about when I was stepping, right? Which can then be used as at least a nice swag at active energy levels. So I have historical data that is now useful, because I can compare how I am in my 40s to how I was in my 30s, that I didn't even know I had. So
Like Christmas.
Yeah. So some things start de novo, like the Fulcra app that you can install on your iPhone. People are using to track their location history, and that's only going to start like when you installed.
Sure.
Though people have been importing their Google location history into their Fulcra data store, and that way getting a longer time window. So there are sometimes ways of like reactivating data that might be in your data hoarding past, that when brought into Fulcra can be used to correlate and with the rest of your life, and find some interesting insights. So I guess I just want to say, data hoarders unite.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have so many questions, but I think we do need to get into the Q&A now, but as you're talking, I'm like, oh, I could chat about this for a while.
Yeah.
Are you ready to go into live Q&A?
Let's do this, yes.
Okay. All right, so this question is from, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Jujas. Currently, LLMs like ChatGPT and Llama are generating significant market hype, but what do you envision for the next 5 years as LLMs mature and become more advanced with data from the internet? Okay,
great question, and I want to pick this apart. I'm really confident in all models of like this size and sophistication, progressing to write better and better code, and to really help software development. I think we should all be highly confident that that's going to happen. There's a lot of speculation that mere language models, if you will, are going to generate increasingly good world models. And I'm more skeptical about that. The way in which transformers are doing token manipulation, it patently produces great language, and seems to solve for what Charles Sanders Peirce called abductive reasoning, which is a tremendous breakthrough. But none of these models are showing a ground up accurate world model, and there's hand waving about how exactly that's going to happen. So maybe skepticism there will be warranted. However, the world will be transformed just with better and better code generation. Like just that pushes so much power and intelligence to the endpoint to change the way that software eats the world, that I think it'll have that in that respect, the world will change in a way that absolutely lives up to the hype. Then there's this final element to this question that I think is really fascinating, which is where the advancements in LLMs will come from. Will they come from more data from the internet? And I actually think the answer is no. So the breakthrough of really high parameter models, like the ones being name checked right here, ChatGPT and Llama, do come from training on the tremendous human knowledge stores that are the internet, and that's going to top out. Like there's just the one internet. It's pretty well crawled. It's pretty well digested into training sets. We're not going to suddenly make a 10x larger internet filled with 10x the human knowledge. So further breakthroughs in this category of AI, the transformer architecture and its derivatives, is either going to come from really good synthetic data, which may or may not work out, or maybe the information density of visual information is just going to the information density of like video is going to really surprise us and turn into a big lever. Maybe not. So probably future innovation that's like going to be big breakthroughs against how do we make an accurate world model are going to have to come from something else entirely. It's not going to be training on the internet.
All right, awesome. And Bob has asked, should we treat and see the AI introduction like the internet boom in the 1990s for upscaling and investing?
Yeah, man, really great question. And I think here is the way in which I think the answer is yes. Put yourselves back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Especially, here was a transformative moment for me. The lamp stack. Like there was a period when there was no such thing as the lamp stack, and then there was a period where it seemed like all of my friends and I were learning the lamp stack and building stuff. The lamp stack stood for, it was an acronym standing for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. And the idea was that you could assemble this stack of technologies and you could get good at specifically setting up Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, and then you could build something cool, and you could build something cool in like a weekend. Well, before so many of us socially converged on this pattern, like we're all going to learn these things and then we're going to build something cool with PHP. It was like an open question about what particular combination of enabling technologies we should learn in order to get things done. For instance, it was not at all clear that three-tier architecture was going to be the winning architecture. I remember also learning the nuances of a web server called AOL server that was the front end and application layer, and you just needed a Postgres backend and you could be up and running. And that was powerful in many ways. So I kind of got some leverage out of learning the AOL server plus Postgres like stack. But that knowledge ran out of steam, became less relevant over time. LAMP had a longer run. Many of us maybe want to make fun of PHP now, but come on, man. It is a super useful programming language if you just want to get something done. Ask all of the early people at Facebook, right? So where we're at right now is it's a really big open question about what the stack is going to be. So there's lots of experimentation. Is LangChain an important layer of abstraction? Should we be learning particular vector databases? Should I be picking Weaviate? Should I be picking Chroma? Or should I be picking none because it just turns out that RAG is just a hack around context windows not being big enough, and that problem's just going to go away. I happen to have some opinions. I don't know if those opinions are correct. I think we should be thinking about this era as mid 90s. It's like people are installing, Internet Explorer has now made browsers more accessible. they're still battling it out with Netscape. But how we should combine these technologies in the highest leverage way is still an open question. And that means that we're going to see some companies explode in value. Recall that also what happened in the 90s is that certain forms of like J2EE server were stock market darlings, which seems kind of crazy right now. There's quite possibly some fortunes that rise because people are thinking, oh, this is going to be the A in the lamp stack, and then it's just going to be wrong. It's going to be only a moment in time victory. We're in that pre-gelling phase, and that's really neat because the 90s were filled with evolution that seemed that evolutionary pace was way faster than 2000 2008 was just like much slower. So I don't think that the evolutionary battling is going to last forever. I think we're in the period right now of like maximum ambiguity, and when we look at this time in the past, we'll see maybe that the dominant winners were already starting right now, but it's anybody's guess if that's actually happened or is yet to come.
That's awesome. I think we have time for one more question. And this is fun. This is a creative one. There is no doubt that AI increases productivity, but do you think that in the long run, creativity and creative thinking will be threatened, at least to some extent?
Nice. Hard no. And here's exactly why. I think that AI tools are reducing the distance between imagination and realized artifact. So I don't know the mechanics of like painting, right? I have not mastered the hand movements. My brain is not really good at seeing negative space. So there's a whole bunch of execution skills if I wanted to make a painting that I don't have, and so I'd have to go through all of the labor of learning those execution specifics to make a painting that matches something that I've imagined actually come to the light of day. I think that generative tools, in particular generative AI, in effect gives everyone an assistive like magic paintbrush, and that contracts the distance between what they're imagining and bringing something to existence in the world. So I think that contraction is necessarily going to increase the net creativity in the world, because it's going to empower more people to get things out of their head and actually onto the screen or into physical reality. And the net positive effect of that is much bigger than the negative effect of like AI generated slop. So I'm not discounting the existence of the slop. I'm rather just saying that the empowerment of people to actually make shareable these ideas that used to be entirely internal is like massively orders of magnitude larger than the negative externalities that also come from reducing that distance.
I love that. I love that. Oh yeah, no, I mean, this whole thing has been so exciting. Thank you, Michael, Tiffany, for joining us. Yes, I really enjoyed talking about Fulcra Dynamics. We haven't talked before about what a world is going to look like when people have access to their data in a non-siloed fashion. And I can imagine so many use cases that help people like in recovery or when we're diagnosing like, children with dysregulation, and we just want to have a better understanding of like, what is the noise in their environment? What are these factors that we have never looked at before, right? Like that is Absolutely fascinating to me. Before the show started, I think I did forget to mention that Maven Analytics has a couple free courses available that you can go on and try right now. So I would love for you to go and check those out. And then again, if you want to give us a follow on LinkedIn or YouTube, that way you'll be in the know when it comes to next episodes. And thank you, Michael, so much again. I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you.
This was lovely. Thanks for having me.